Okay, let's get some perspective on this. Joining me this morning, our law and crime legal analyst Mike Korobanix and trial attorney Marie Napoli. It's great to have you both here, and you're going to be joining me for two big cases. So we're going to start with Ahmaud Arbery. Mike, let me begin with you. The decision to deny bond to both of these men, your thoughts on that?
I think it was a good decision. I'm not so sure on the process, though, Jesse. This was highly unusual for a bail hearing. I mean, this took a large amount of time. It almost seemed like a trial. I've only seen at bail hearings when a victim speaks about some sort of fear or some sort of fear of the release of those defendants. This is highly unusual because regardless of what anybody thinks, under the law, these defendants have a presumption of innocence. And all that matters right now is whether or not they're a danger to the community or a danger or risk of flight to flee the jurisdiction. It's highly unusual to have that. That almost seemed like a victim statement that someone would give after a conviction.
Marie, let me jump on that. One of the criticisms raised by the defense attorney was that if Ahmaud Arbery, if this was a different case, if there wasn't a racial component, they even suggested, let's say Ahmaud Arbery was white, if this didn't have as much attention brought to it across the country, if the politics didn't factor in, would these two men have been granted bond? I mean, does that play into the judge's decision here?
You know, I have to agree 100% that politics did play a role in the judge's decision here. You have to realize judges are human, just like you and I, and they do feel political pressure of the time, and it does absolutely affect their decision. Unless these two were a danger or were a flight risk, I agree that they should have been granted bond. The fear of, because they are presumed innocent, the whole point of a bail hearing is to set amount of money on a bail if you think that they're not going to be a flight risk. There was no indication at all that these two were a flight risk. And quite honestly, I don't think, what happened was horrific. And what the mother was saying about what happened to her son was extremely moving, but I don't think it met the legal standard to deny them a bond. So I do think that that was a mistake, and it definitely was because of the political time and pressure on this judge, and knowing that we're all watching this.
Well, knowing that we're all watching this, I want to play a little bit more of Ahmaud Arbery's mother from last week, because it was very impactful what she had to say here. Someone who lost a son, let's hear a little bit more of that.
As the court may imagine, I have suffered. I continue to suffer mentally and emotionally while I wait for justice for my son. My daughter, Jasmine Ahmaud's older sister, his best friend, just had her first baby. I often think as she begins the journey of motherhood, will I have the words of wisdom to help her along the way? Mothers protect their children. I wasn't given the opportunity to protect my son. I'm here to ask this court to help me be a mother who protects my grandchildren and fight for justice for my son. He ran this path many times, and our home was just a light jog away. But for him, no matter how he maneuvered, no matter how fast he ran, or how quickly he turned, these men refused to let him go home. They should not go home now to prepare for their defense, to enjoy their children and grandchildren, and to be embraced by the community. These men are as dangerous today as they were on February the 23rd of 2020. Ahmaud wasn't allowed to go home. Ahmaud was even allowed the chance to live. He was denied all of that. Thank you.
Mike, let's focus on the defense here, because they're saying that Ahmaud Arbery, they suspected of being a burglar, but when you look at the reports, there were no instances of this kind of crime for, I believe, 7 weeks before what happened, the Arbery incident. So it raises the question, what were they doing that day? What was in their minds that day? And clearly there are people who believe that this was a hate crime, that this was a racially fueled crime, that they just killed him. And this idea that they felt they were justified is ludicrous. Your response to that defense?
Well, I think it's always dangerous for defense attorneys to lay out their defense so early in the case. I mean, here is clearly just a issue of whether or not these two defendants are a danger to the community. Obviously, they are. And I think the judge made the right decision by denying them bond based upon the evidence that we have so far. I think when you're going to make those kind of defenses this early on, you better watch, because now the state knows where they're going in their defense and will probably come up with data, things of the nature of investigations of that nature to show that this was not, there was no way anybody could put together that this person was committing burglaries. And quite frankly, the defense really will probably fall short, because if someone was committing burglaries, you call the police. You don't act as the own police for the community. And that video is disturbing. And I think that the judge made the right decision in holding these people till their trial and until the jury makes a decision. But clearly they're a danger to the community, and I think he was on point.
Marie, one of the rationales, one of the justifications to keeping them locked away was the idea that this was racially motivated. And one of the things that we learned on Friday was that apparently Travis McMichael had sent a text, to another about using racial epithets. And this kind of idea that, well, these guys can't claim that they're innocent members of the community when it seems to show a racial bias, which is an important factor in this case. How do you think that factored into the bond hearing? How do you think that's going to factor into this case? I mean, the reveal of this text message was something big.
Well, certainly this was racially motivated. If he was a white woman coming out of that same location, if it was a white woman, wouldn't be dead right now. And what escapes me is, even if he was committing a robbery or a burglary or a trespass, you can't use deadly force to kill a man for committing what could be a minor infraction. So this was certainly, I don't see how this could not be deemed racially motivated. I do disagree that he was a danger to the community as a whole, unless they came across this particular situation where they felt racially threatened. The truth of the matter is, they may have felt that they were threatened because of their ingrained notions of racism, that this person was a danger because of his color and because of his race. So that's how they could be dangerous to a Black person, and they're continuing.
And it sounds almost like
defense.
It's echoing the what the prosecution would say in an opening statement. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. Listen, we do have to take a quick break. I want to get more into this with both Mike and Marie, because there is more from this bond hearing. And again, keeping a careful eye, courtroom feed out of Ohio, our new trial. We'll be back right after this.